I'm Radhika Gosavi, your host for this podcast. Welcome to our first episode. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Mahesh Kale, a national award-winning Indian classical vocalist who cares deeply about making a positive difference in the world. Stay tuned as we explore the connections between music, education, and technology from a cognitive lens. First, here is Professor Sridhar Iyer with a short description of the podcast.
Welcome to this series of podcasts. First of all, the background behind me is IIT Bombay for those of you who have been unable to visit. So, there is a hill on campus, and this is the view from the from that hill. And I am Sridhar Iyer, a professor in the Department of Education Technology. I currently also head that department. So, for this podcast, uh, the interdisciplinary program is launching this Talk Brainy to Me, which is a new video interview podcast. This is actually the brainchild of Dr. Radhika Gosavi, who is a visiting faculty member in our department for this semester. So, the basic idea of this podcast is that there are 7.9 billion people in this world, and each has a different perspective. So, as a student, a teacher, a leader, or an individual, it's important to see things in a different light. So this allows us to learn more about the world and also deeply connects us with each other. So the idea behind the podcast is to feature prominent musicians, social workers, actors, and athletes, amongst others, who are working in different fields at the forefront of their field and ask the one question that is in common, which is like, what is connecting that? The science, the education, and the technology. So we hope that through Talk Brainy to Me, you'll hear thought-provoking conversations in which experts discuss their experiences and perspectives on topics important for the advancement in education and technology from a lens of how our brain learns. So that is the unique perspective of this podcast. Okay, and we are also hoping that this podcast serves as a source of motivation and inspires people to form these interdisciplinary collaborations, which actually fuel the changes in the world. So, having said that about the podcast, let me say a couple of lines about Dr. Radhika Gosavi. So, she is an educational neuroscientist and a visiting faculty member at IIT Bombay. So, even though she was online, she could not come physically to join us. She actually taught a course, a full-fledged course this semester called Educational Neuroscience to our education technology students. Through her research, Radhika is interested in understanding the cognitive and neural processes that underlie learning and development. As a scientist and educator, she is interested in exploring topics, questions, ideas, and stories that are impacting both education and technology. She aims to bring researchers, educators, artists, and technology professionals together to build creative educational models. So Radhika is also passionate about supporting equitable learning and empowering students and teachers for a brighter future. She is originally from Mumbai, but grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area where she now resides. Okay, so more information you can visit radhikagosavi.com. So with that introduction, I'll hand over to Radhika and invite you to say more about the podcast and take it from here. Over to you, Radhika.
Thank you so much. So this is really, I think, a great, meaningful way to kick off this podcast episode, all the podcast episodes, because, if we think about it, music is something that's a companion for all of us, right, in India and around the world. Furthermore, music is shown to really impact how our brain learns in so many different ways. The scientific data shows that music is helpful for learning math concepts, learning language, remembering information, paying attention to a whole variety of things. We also know that there's many areas and pathways in the brain that are activated when we engage with music. Everything from the front of our brain to the back of our brain, the emotional areas, the memory processing areas, the visual areas, amongst many other processes. Scientists also know that there's a lot of different kind of chemicals released in our body when we listen to music, including oxytocin, which is really the love hormone. So this all together leads us to believe that music is not only important to get pleasure, but also really critical for our health and for education. Lately, the use of technology in music and education has grown exponentially and more so in the recent times and continues to develop rapidly. So for this first episode of Talk Brainy to Me, I'm very, very excited to get a unique perspective on the integration of music technology in education with Mr. Mahesh Kare, who's here. Mahesh is an expert Hindustani classical vocalist and has received numerous accolades, which we don't really have time to cover today. But the more importantly is that he's working at the forefront of the domain. He's an engineer, an avid technology user, and a passionate teacher himself. So Mahesh is really the ideal candidate for today's episode and for today's conversations. So with that, I want to really get started with the first question. It can seem a little basic, but I want to ask you, how do you define music and what is the impact it's had on your life?
First off, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's a little intimidating to be in a talk that says Talk Brainy to Me. All I am is a musician. I have been an engineer in what seems like my past life now. So this is going to be brushing up a lot of those concepts. Now, as far as your question goes, what is music? I think it's very hard to pinpoint on what music is. You can define it in various different modes. But to me, music is fundamentally a natural expression of your emotions that goes beyond the spoken word. I feel, there is an amazing common denomination in all of us across the world. In that we all smile and laugh when we feel joy or happiness. We all cry when we feel sorrow. So the baseline of emotions is the same. Given that it is the same, I feel the music is an extension of expressing ourselves. And while it is culturally a little unique, the fundamental idea is to be able to express yourself without having the bounds of spoken word. So that is what I think music is to me.
You mentioned this as part of your response. You were an engineer previously. I kind of want to touch upon that, which is really interesting aspect. I don't know how many people know, but you have multiple graduate degrees in engineering. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So with that in mind, being a highly trained engineer and a vocalist, are there any parallels you can draw from studying engineering and studying music in various ways?
I guess so. Every really good engineer at the end of his quest becomes an artist in his own right. I would call Mr. Elon Musk an artist at what he does, because thinking of creating the first ever electrical vehicle, from the concept to execution to making it one of the most sought after vehicles, especially in the Western world, in the Bay Area. And I think it's a hallmark of being an artist. And every musician or an artist is in a way a good engineer, because especially a performing musician, because what you're doing is you're assimilating all the information that you gather in your Riyaz room, that we can call the classroom. And from that theory to taking that music as a fundamental science, to taking it to the performance arena, where you kind of get into this tweaking and feedback mechanism and tweaking a stereotype product that can then be taken across the globe in the form of a performance. So I do see a remarkable similarity between an engineer and a musician.
Can you walk us through your creative singing process? What's happening?
Well, it's going to be a little hard, because it's kind of trying to help you walk with my impulse, because that's what drives my music. Two things, while all of us are on Earth, are isolated by the atmosphere, but also have a connection with the bigger universe. Now, given that we all are similar, we are living the same life, but If you really think about it, we do not breathe in the same air every day because it's going to be recirculated from different places. In the same way, even if on the face of it I'm singing the same song, it's like taking a hike. Let's say we're going to San Antonio Rancho, it's not too far from where you live. Uh, if I'm on that hike, even if I take the same trail, the clouds are going to be different. The temperature is going to be different. The sunlight is going to be different. And according to the season, the trees are going to be different. They are sometimes in their springtime, sometimes they are in their fall colors and all of that. And if I were to, as a human that is trying to respond to all the stimuli around me, I'm going to be in a very different space in all of these different scenarios. That is exactly what happens to me when I'm singing. It's like picking a trail, saying, this is where I'm going to go today. But once I pick that trail, I'm not hell bent on staying the course. If I see something like if I were walking on the path of Abira Gulala, and if there is a one particular line where I see a beautiful flower, then I want to stop and smell the flower. Or if there's a big tree somewhere in the second stanza, I want to go and hug that tree. And it might be a different flower or a different tree that attracts my attention. That is typically what you do. To get to that place, I believe first you want to make sure that you hone your skill to be able to. So I want to make sure that I have the stamina to walk, make sure that I have the right kind of shoes and all of that. I'm drawing analogies because they sometimes help understand the domain a little better. So in the classroom, in the Riyaz room that I would do, I would go after all the exercises that are going to enable me to be in the best shape so that I can get on any hike and be able to achieve what I need to achieve physically. So once you have that skill set, it's quite ironical or oxymoronic, if that's a word. First you learn the art, you learn the grammar, you learn the skill, and then you try to escape it without losing it, so that you are all there completely vulnerable to the situation that you are put in. The only familiarity is the thread of the song, which kind of becomes invisible in that abstract space. And then you start exploring the space as a response to what you feel. So even if I am kind of creating music, I am also responding to this stimuli that I have in my mind. So it's a beautiful, and that's why I said in the beginning, it's a little tricky to really walk you through, because every single time I sing the song, even if it is the same song, it feels like I'm walking for the first time.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's kind of this exploratory journey of sorts. Is that kind of true?
Yeah, it's just like life. I mean, even if it is, yeah, art mimics life. It is always the moment the exploration stops, the life stops. So does music. So it is always an exploration.
Yeah. So now I want to kind of ask a question out of personal interest, because I get a chance to talk to you. Our brains are known to be what we call plastic, meaning that the connections in our brain are able to change as we learn different information. And we're really able to adapt to the environment that we are in a given space. Having said that, there are certain periods in our life which are called sensitive periods, in which we're able to learn certain pieces of information better than other pieces of information. Now, I'm fascinated by people who are able to sing. I unfortunately am not one of them. So really what I want to ask you is, have I missed the boat on becoming a singer? Or do you think there's a certain point in your life or in anyone's life at which, you can't really learn singing at the same level, or, something like that?
So I'll try to take a second pass at the defining music. That was the first question, okay? And that kind of answers your current question also. So music is the the melodious sound that a breath forms. I'm talking about vocal music. As long as you have your breath going, I don't think you have missed the boat. Because see, and I truly believe it. Again, it will depend on, if you wanted to make a career out of it, then it is a different discussion. Then we'll have to make sure what your aptitude is, how much time you're willing to put, and all of those things. But fundamentally, if you can, I might sound like a hopeless romantic, but it is true. That is what I believe. As long as you can appreciate the beauty of a sunrise or a sunset, or you can have a good peaceful time when you listen to crashing waves, or even just biking somewhere, I think you can sing. Again, what I'm trying to hint at is anyone that wants to express. Music is such a beautiful form, because all the expressions of even hate and anger and all those negative forms, they are converted into a beautiful melody that is appreciable. So you haven't missed the boat at all. Neither has any of the viewers that are 80 years old, 90 years old. It is an activity, as I said, that is a mode of self-expression. As long as you want to express, you have not missed it.
Oftentimes classical music is perceived to be almost like an exclusive club of sorts, right? And it makes the general public a little bit apprehensive towards it. So what do you think we can do to make classical music accessible to everyone, but especially younger individuals?
2 steps. Yes, it has been an exclusive club, but that does not mean that that club cannot have affiliations in different geographies. It's a simple way.
Right.
Increase your base. But I think, if you look at it, so it's believed to be formed in temples, then it went to the courts that were, court musicians used to serve the king. Now the king is going to invite these special people, and only they get to listen to classical music. Up until a time now, you can just buy a ticket to any concert and you can go. But sense of exclusivity still kind of permeates through the times. This is on the practical side of things. On the musical side of things, it is for an Indian trying to appreciate a pasta. For someone that is used to indulge in so much of spice, pasta is like, hey, are they missing something here? That's how I felt the first time. I'm serious. But now over the years, I'm like, oh wow, that's wonderful. Just that little bit of flavor is outstanding. So you have to kind of graduate in the way you can. This is from the perspective of the observer. Now, how you would do? One, you want to make as many affiliations as possible, but also you have to understand from an engineer's perspective, you have to segment your market, and you have to know your market. Who are you doing this for? What is your product? What is it supposed to do? And who is going to consume your product? Simply put. Now, if my audience is going to be, well, first let me make a statement. It doesn't matter how long of a heritage your art has. It is always at a risk if it is not adopted by the next generation. Okay, because eventually the current generation is going to perish. The next generation is going to be responsible to take it ahead or not. So then, what I would like to do is I want to make sure that I position it in a way that it does not become intimidating in its exclusivity.
Yeah.
So if there's a kid who is at the bottom of a stairs, and at the end of that staircase there is a beautiful view, as a musician, I want to go down, reach out to that kid, pick them up, and then show them the view that is at the end of this. That, I think, is the job of me as a musician, to make sure that that view, which is in classical music, is available and accessible to the next generation. So what you want to do, and you can do it in various different ways. Sometimes you camouflage it in the form of a popular music that they know, or you do collaboration with jazz, so it stands out for the jazz musicians. They know jazz. What is not jazz is classical music. Or sometimes you have a movie song that is based on classical music, or you make shorter presentations, theme presentations like Melange that I had done, which kind of tells the story behind the classical music in an engaging, interesting way. So these are all different ways that I would engage the audience in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that people like you and others are kind of taking on these initiatives that makes it more appealing in certain ways to a broader audience. Speaking of which, thinking about broader applications of music, I want to ask you, do you think there's a way in which music, and specifically vocal music, can be best used as a form of therapy in various ways, to maybe help enhance focus or help special needs students? What are your thoughts about this?
Absolutely. As I said, when I'm in concerts, I just sing, but it has a very different effect and impact on people. I've gotten messages from people saying I was feeling suicidal, and the last thing I wanted to do was listen to my favorite song, which was yours, and I decided to change my mind. From that to someone saying my grandfather had a multiple skull fracture, and the only thing that he kept on responding to was your music. So obviously, if you get bunch of these messages, I don't think I have the capability to heal, but if my music is serving that space, then I don't want to deny the possibility that it has. If you ask me personally, see, it would be very boring for a musician to only be a performer for 4-8 hours at the most every week and then not be able to do anything. So if I'm not able to engage with music in a way that goes way beyond just trying to perform, then it would really be a disappointing thing to be a full-time musician. All other full-time people work at least 40 hours a week, and you won't have to do it. So when I engage with music, if you ask me about my personal, I don't necessarily engage with music to serve a transaction. It is always because it grounds me. It gives me the hope and a feeling that everything is going to be okay. Just being in the company of music, that is what it does. It does have a healing aspect because the entertainment aspect has a lot of, as I said, monetary potential. That is what is being harnessed most right now. I really hope that we are able to create a product that goes towards healing, has tremendous commercial potential also, so that it actually comes to the fore. But the reason I'm saying this is, I mean, at the crux of it, just like yoga, and music is sometimes called as Nada Yoga, it is a way of life. It's a few things you do for the sanity and for the well-being of yours. It has nothing to do with what you can make out of it and how can you make a transaction out of it. So there is tremendous potential in music beyond the basic entertainment appeal that it has.
Being, as Sridhar mentioned in kind of the beginning, being at the forefront of your field, a lot of people, of course, perceive you to be very, very successful, and rightly so. But I want to know from you, at this point in your life, what does success mean for you? And was it different at another point?
Yes. Success is always like it's like a horizon. When you go closer, it goes farther. To me, something that, so I'm both successful and not. To me, if I'm able to feel happy around music, I'm successful. That's in the simple thing. Now, if you ask me how does success change now, my surroundings have changed over time. Everyone's surrounding changed. So now, if I am in a concert, which is an engagement, which is a professional engagement, that I need to be mindful of the fact that I have been professionally engaged to make sure that people are happy. But the way I define success is if I can make people happy listening to what I feel happy singing, that is success.
Yep.
So, and in that, everyone is a struggling musician. It doesn't matter how successful they are. Everyone is struggling. And struggle is what makes it real and alive. So I want all the struggles. I want new challenges to overcome. With those, the horizons broaden. And uh, it really, I mean, I'm glad I've been able to achieve what I have, but there is just so much to do as in engineering. Who would have thought that we could even think of going to Mars now? It was just not possible with the speeds, with the engines, with the time it would take, and all of that. Now it is a possibility, and people are actually buying a one-way ticket to Mars. So even in music, uh, we have some latency problems, but if that technology is solved, which I'm very sure it will be, I can be sitting in India and collaborating with someone that is sitting in San Francisco real time, which can be projected on a stage in a holographic way. And I'm looking forward to those challenges. I'm looking forward to doing things that have not been done. And I would love to be an ambassador of Indian classical music, to be on that stage performing with whoever else.
Something that comes to your mind when I say humility?
Humility. I'm going to fire my Tanpura for this, which sits on my iPhone. I don't know what. So humility is, when you said humility, because we are all suffering from pandemic all throughout the world, it's trying to pray for everyone instead of trying to just look out for your own. That is what I think. And there is this song that was composed by my Guruji, Pandit Jitendra Abhisheki, for a Marathi play, which has the spirit of that. Sarvatmaka Sarveshwara, जे जे jagi jagate taya, माझे म्हणा करुणा करा, Sarvatmaka Sarveshwara. Let everyone find happiness. Whoever is living in this world, please call them yours own and bless all of us living on this earth. I'll just hum this little thing. सर्वात्मका सर्वेश्वरा, सर्वात्मका सर्वेश्वरा, गंगाधरा शिवसुंदरा, गंगाधरा शिवसुंदरा, वेदे जगी जगते तया, वेदे जगी जगते तया, माझे म्हणा करुणा करा, माझे म्हणा करुणा करा, सर्वात्मका 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 सर्वेश्वरा.